In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a little bit more advanced project. And this is the artwork that we have to start with. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of overlay this tornado on top of our F. But we're going to show you how we do this here in CorelDRAW and some of the different tools that we'll use here in EasyStone to help simplify this process. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, let's focus in on our F. Now, the F artwork is very, very poor quality. We're not going to convert this to vector very easily. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a bunch of guidelines at all these intersecting points. And I'll just kind of show you how I would build this back up. So we're just going to create a bunch of guidelines right here at all these intersecting points. I'll tell you what, we're just going to create one there. And let me just kind of show you what I would do. What I'm going to do here is come into our pen tool, and let's actually pull a guideline over here, and we're going to pull one right there. And we're going to grab our pen tool here. We want to make sure that the snap to guidelines is turned on, so when I hover over a guideline it'll snap. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click one point, and then that will give me this kind of rubber band. And I'm going to click and click on these intersections. See where it says intersection? Come all the way down, and I don't know where. I'm just going to, let's go, I don't know, let's just go right there to that point right there. Okay? And then all I'm going to do is flip this over and then bring this back to this guideline here. Now I do want this to be up to there, but then this corner, really this corner on this artwork is going to be right there at that intersection. Alright, and then we're going to take this, actually let's lock our bitmap so we can't accidentally move it. So let's flip this over like so, and let's go ahead and bring it up to the bottom here. And the nice thing here is this angle and this angle is exactly the same as it is up here. Alright, so now let's create this little hook. So we're going to use our 3-point curve tool for that because it does that job the best. And you can see I'm kind of overlapping things here a little bit. And that's okay. We can do that. So then for the smaller hook, I'm just going to pull it down and shrink it a little bit like so. Okay? And that more or less gets our smaller hook in place. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create this little part of the F. So we're just going to use our rectangle tool, and we'll go ahead and bring that out to there. And then we'll go back to our pen tool here where we're going to connect. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do here. Just click, and we should, tell you what, let's have a guideline right there. So now we'll grab our pen tool and we can click, snap to our guideline, and then we can pull back up to that point there. And we want to mirror this so it's exactly identical at the top. Always important to make sure we can get things identical so it's perfect top and bottom there. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my 3-point curve tool, and let's go ahead and come in here. Tell you what, let's grab our 2-point line tool, and we'll create a straight line first, a little straight line segment. Then we'll grab our 3-point curve tool, and we'll kind of just attach to that. Then we'll come up this direction, and then we can come over just like so. Alright, so that is basically the foundation of our F. So now what I'm going to use is my paint bucket tool to fill in all these gaps. It's kind of almost like a coloring book. Now we actually have kind of a snazzy little feature here inside EasyStone where we can select one piece and hit create selection, and it'll create a selection of all like pieces. So you see there's our F, and let's weld it together. And you can see this is the result that we get. Not exactly the result that we want because this is kind of punched out here. So let's go ahead and right click and break this apart. Let's see here. Well, let's undo that and let's see what's going on here. There's this little piece here. Alright, so let's go ahead and delete that. What's this right here? Let's extend this over and see if that doesn't fix. Sometimes you got to kind of monkey with it a little bit to get this to weld together like we want it. There we go. So now this is welded together like we want it. Let's get rid of our outline because we don't need that. So there is our F. See, that didn't take so long, right? And we have a nice looking F. So let's make this however tall we want. And let's just say I want it to be 8 inches tall. So there's my F. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a kind of a drop shadow and push it to the bottom, shift page down. Let's give it a different color. So now you can see I've kind of just offset my F a little bit. Something like so. Maybe I'm going to offset it from the bottom a little bit more. All right, so there we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a contour of my F. Not sure how much. Maybe like that. Break it apart. And let's just do a trim. Get rid of our black outline. So now you can see we have this nice little gap in between here. Now we just have this little sliver. So we'll go ahead and dispose of that. We don't need that. But you can see we have a nice little offset there, and I just kind of think that kind of looks cool like that. So maybe we'll do that in black, and maybe we'll do this in, you can see it just pops a little bit more that way. So that's kind of cool, right? So now what we want to do is we want to take our hurricane and just set it right over the top. Actually, I'm going to push it down to the bottom so we can see how this will interact with our F a little bit. So we got the bottom of our tornado, hurricane, whirligig here. And how do we want this to intersect with our F? Well, let's just say that looks pretty good. I think I'd be happy with the way that looks. So we're actually going to put that on top. All right. So now that we have this in place, let's just pull it over here and work on it all by itself. Now there's a lot of different ways to handle this, and I've done a lot of rhinestone designs, and I usually have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to tackle any given design before I ever start it. So what we're going to do here is let's just make a copy of this, and this part down here, the small little bits and pieces, those are so small. We're going to have to use a very small rhinestone to kind of get that detail in. But those are so small, we really can't do a whole lot with those anyhow. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry about these little bits and pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my artwork, and I'm going to come in here to my font tab, believe it or not, and I'm going to use this function right here, convert to single line font. But before I do that, I'm going to set my stone size to SS16 stones. And when I hit the convert to single line font, you'll watch what happens. We get some stones kind of just splattered on here. And if I undo one step, just hit Control Z, that will take away my stones and leave just my paths, which is actually what I want, because all these little bits and pieces, remember I said I don't concern myself with those. I just want to deal with this for right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just start in. This is all one path. All right. So I'm going to start in on this, and I'm going to add SS16 stones to it. So now I've added SS16 stones to it. Now you can see it's not a perfect result. It's not bad, but it's not perfect. And this here, I'm going to add mostly SS10s to. So I'm going to right click SS10 and hit add stones to that. And I'm kind of using this original artwork as a guide. Okay, so you can see these stones are kind of thick, and then it gets thin, kind of thick, and then it gets a little bit thinner. So I tell you what, I'm going to change my mind. I can do that. Let's clear those stones out. I'm going to add SS16s to those two. And then to those, to this, and then tens. Tens, 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 and tens. So there we go. We added tens to all that. Okay. So then we will go ahead, and now we got to kind of fine tune everything up. So let's go ahead and select the whole kit and caboodle here and delete our stone paths. Get rid of all of them. Select the whole kit and caboodle and check for any overlapping stones that are sitting right on top of one another, and there are a few. And now we have to kind of fix things. So you can see right here, I don't like the way these stones are obviously interacting with this one. All right, so what we're going to do is grab our freehand pick tool, and we're going to just change that. So now that interacts lovely. Same thing here. Not interacting like it's supposed to. Make it. Okay, so now you can see that looks nice. So we'll go ahead and leave that the way it is. Now here we have a similar situation where it's not interacting very well, but we have a problem with the original artwork too. You know, it's not flowing very good here. So we're going to fix that too as part of our situation here. So we're going to just kind of follow this along all the way down and around, and we'll fix it all. Okay, so let's go ahead and just select. I'm just going to hand select up to a certain point, and then I'm going to hold my shift key down, and we're going to just come in here and add all those stones in one fell swoop, and then we'll go back to individual selections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now from that intersection all the way around to this point over here, we have all those stones selected. I'm going to right click on D, and that will space everything all nice and pretty right there. So we'll go ahead and delete our stone paths, and yes, that all looks really good. So now I can fix where this is intersecting here. Okay, so we'll just come in here, we'll select these stones, and you can see we can just kind of fine tune how that dies in there, and that's going to look a lot nicer. Now I don't know if you can see this very well in the video, but these stones are just a bit wonky. They're not super smooth going around there. So what I would like to do is grab a 3-point curve, and I would like to drag out a little curve, and see how these stones are. They're not, right here you can see now that the curve is there, they're not just as smooth as they could be, are they? So let me make a little change to my curve here. I want it smooth, but you can see how these stones down here are out of place. They're not following the smoothness very well. So with that path selected, we can fix that up. So just right click on D, and now you see how all those snapped right into place for us. So that looks much better. I obsess over those little tiny details, so you don't have to. But we'll go ahead and move this over a little bit. And the same thing here, the same situation here. I'm not happy with how these stones are, so I'm just going to kind of drag a little 3-point curve, and let's right click on D, and those are just, I find it helpful to actually draw the curve, and you can see now they kind of just snapped into place and they look a little bit better. But that's just me. That's just how I do it. All right, so now you can see that where this interacts and this interacts, that's all pretty good. You can see, however, where this comes around isn't exactly right. So what I would do is focus on getting the bottom half exactly right. Get it how you want it. So we're just going to make small, tiny little tweaks with these stones. And now that I'm happy with how this bottom is going to come around, I'm going to go ahead and grab all of those. See how awesome that freehand pick tool is? And then we're going to right click on D. We're going to get it all situated. And now I might think that those stones are just a touch too tight. So I can right click on plus minus, and I can take away a stone or two to get it perfect. All right. So now we have that bottom part perfect, Now let's go ahead and deal with our top part. And what I would probably do, because there's so much to change at the top, I would probably just come in and get rid of what we have at the top. And we can just draw new. So we'll do a 3-point curve like such. We'll get it close, and then I'll go to my shape tool here and we'll perfect it. And this is something that you really got to learn how to do, is how to work with these control handles to really get a good handle on how to manipulate these and get the results that you're looking to get. So we're going to try that right there. We're going to set our stones to SS16s for the time being, and we're going to go ahead and choose Add Stones. Now you can see right now there's too many stones there, so we can right click and get rid of them until you get that spacing just exactly how you want it. And now you can see that is dying. Everything's dying just like it should. Now that takes care of all these intersections that we had. But now what we need to do is we need to come in here and we need to modify things a bit, because you can see it tapers to skinny, 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 skinny. Back here it tapers to skinny. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to come in here and grab a swath of stones where we're going to say, hey, this is where skinny begins. So we're going to move all those to 10s. And then what I would do is move this stone close to that one like we want. And same thing here. We can make a small change there. But then what we're going to do is we need to add stones in here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use my freehand pick tool and pick up all the little stones and right click, and that's going to create us a path, of course. And then I can clear stones if I want to, and then go back in and we'll add stones. And it'll automatically determine how many stones should be along that path and put them in place for us. So it gets to thick, and that kind of mimics what this is doing. Okay. So these are all going to be small SS10 stones. And we do the same thing. We would create a path. We now have a path. We could add a couple of stones, select our path, right click on D again. That's a little bit too tight, so we'll right click on D again, and that will kind of sort those out for us a little bit. If we weren't happy with that spacing, we could bring this end stone in a little bit. That's always an option. And then respace. Oops. Let's try that again. So we'll select all of those stones and then right click. What's happening here? There we go. So that'll sort them all back out again. So then we do the same thing over here. Move those to 10s. Add one. And respace. And get rid of the path. So you can see that got to skinny. And then we'll do the same thing here. We will go ahead and move those to 10s. This one too. We'll add a stone in here, at least one. Right click on D, delete, and that'll take care of that. So now that we have this going to skinny, I tell you what, we're going to make that back to a 16, I think. And maybe this one too. And let's sort those out. So we'll grab our freehand pick tool and we'll respace those. I think that's a little bit tight, so I'm going to pull this one out. And that will gain us a little bit of spacing all the way around. Right click on D. And so you can see that just increased the spacing just a little bit. So that takes care of that one. And then we want to do something similar over here. So we'll set those to 10. And I think what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and space all of these. See what that looks like first. And I think I'm happy with that. So now you can kind of see how this is going to come together. Now if you look at the original artwork, right in here it got a little skinny too. It's thick out here all the way around, but inside it's skinny. So we're going to go ahead with our freehand pick tool here. We're just going to kind of arbitrarily turn some of those into 10s. And then with our freehand pick tool, we need to select those, create us a path that we can work with, create us a few duplicates, just hitting the space bar, select my path, and respace along the path there. So now you can see that spacing is about what we want, and that takes care of that. So now you can see it's really coming together. Now down here, this gets a little bit skinny over here. So let's go ahead and do that. Move those down to 10s. Doesn't get skinny over here. So what I'll do here is, and I'm not happy with these stones right here. There's a little bit of a bump there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just create a path, first of all. See those stones right there? They're not smooth. So we'll right click on D. We'll smooth them up, which we did. Then we have to delete those stones from the path. And then we have to select the whole thing here. All those stones all the way around. And then right click. And see what happened there? We have a mess. And you get that every once in a while. Why do we have a mess? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we need to define the start point. So the last stone that's selected, that becomes the start point. And so now if we right click and hit D, you can see we don't get a mess because we properly defined the start point of the respacing. So that takes care of that. Now we do have, because it's such a sharp corner here, it does kind of create a little bit of an issue. So sometimes we'll delete a stone or whatever right there at the corner to make that corner maybe not quite so sharp. You can see this little piece right here didn't turn out so well. So I would probably create us a little curve and snap those stones to the curve. And let's delete our path there. And tell you what, let's make those two 10s. Let's add one, and then we'll go ahead and respace those. This piece right here is this piece, so it gets small, then thick, then small again. So maybe what we'll do is we'll make that a 10. We'll make all of these a 10. I'm trying to do a lot of 10s and 16s and fewer 6s. So I think I'll be happy with that. So we'll go ahead and select all of those. Right click on D. And yeah, that's a little bit too tight, a little bit too aggressive there. But I think what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to draw a path and snap these stones to a path so they're a little bit smoother. So we'll right click on D, and that snaps them right to that path. And you can see it'll be nice and smooth that way. So now the next line down, we're going to go ahead and start doing some 6s and 10s. But I'm not happy with the curvature of this. So I am going to create us a path to snap these stones to both directions here. And we'll right click on D. And that will get those stones snapped to my path. And once I have this stone snapped to the path, then I can come in here and we'll make this a 6 and maybe this one too. And here we'll make a few 6s and then we'll add a stone or two here. And yeah, I think that'll be good. So we'll go ahead and select all of this and we'll right click on D. And we're spending a good deal of time. Now that is probably a little bit too tight, so we can delete one of our 6s over here. We're spending a little bit of extra time getting this hurricane, if you will, just right. But the end result will show that it looks really, really good. All right, so now I'm going to get lazy, I think, and we're just going to kind of the rest of these we'll just kind of throw in here just you get the idea. I mean, you can spend as much time as you want getting this cleaned up. It's really easy to draw these curves. Right click and snap those stones to those curves. And so you can, then we have to delete the stone path, obviously. And we'll fine tune this coming around the corner there. So these are all just going to be one stone size, but obviously you'd probably take the time and taper them, you know, at each end. But you get the idea. Ooh, something happened there, which happens from time to time. Something unexpected happens there. Not exactly sure what that is, but we'll try it again. Hey, second time's the charm. We'll go ahead and delete one stone. And these are just a couple of stones, so we'll go ahead and just hand place those. Same thing here. Alright, so that pretty well takes care of up to that point there. But then I'm going to bring this over and kind of line it up to the original artwork. Let's go ahead and lock it. And we'll just hand place some stones, but these are all going to be 6s. So I'm just going to come in here, and all I'm doing is grabbing a stone and with my space bar making copies. So I'm just going to kind of, one of the neat features here inside CorelDRAW is that quick stone drop functionality. You just come in here and quickly place stones wherever we want them. Of course, we'll get everything cleaned up using our respace function. But at least it kind of gives you an idea. So we will select these stones, right click on D to space them evenly, and we'll go on down the line. Right click, delete. These stones I'm not going to worry about because I actually want them to kind of look scattered. But it's just these ones that are kind of on this curve that it would be nice if there was some consistency, if you will, to them. So we'll tell you what, this time we'll do something different. We'll draw a curve. I actually like using that quite a lot because it gets them a little bit smoother. Okay, so that takes care of our swirl. And you can see it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it, except for this one. I'm not happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just come in here and maybe try and redraw this a little bit. I'm not sure why I'm not happy with this, but it looks a little weird to me. So let's go ahead and see if that looks a little any better. Yeah, actually I think it does look better. But these do not. So let's go ahead and fix this if we can. So we'll sort those out. These should be smaller. Let's see here. What are we going to do? These will be smaller. Let's add an SS10 there. Right click, sort them out. That's better. Let's make those 6s. I'm going to bring this in a little bit, like so. Let's make these smaller, and then we'll sort those out. These I'm going to make 6s and add a couple. That's why everything takes me so much longer, because I'm always fussing. But I think that, like I said, I think the end product will show it's worth it. And let's add another one. Come in here, we'll sort these out. All right. Well, I can rest easy. I think that's pretty good. So we spent a pretty good deal amount of time really finessing and getting the swirls to look just exactly like we wanted them to look. So congratulations there for sticking with it. So now we have our swirls just the way we want. Let's go ahead and change the color of them. Wrong button. So we'll go ahead and change those to crystal. And we'll position them right on top of our graphic, kind of wherever we want them to be. And I think that looks pretty good. And then we have a neat function where we can create a bit of offset from these stones. On the Specialty tab, if you right-click on Create Decal Cut Line, you'll get this option here, and I have it set to 1 millimeter. So I can take all of these stones and hit Create Decal Cut Line, and it'll actually create, you see that little line that it creates, it offsets? So now I can take that line and the black and trim, and then I can take that line and the orange and trim, and then of course I can delete that line because we no longer need it. Let's go ahead and throw a weed box behind it. Let's give our, tell you what, let's just change this maybe to white. Well, I don't know if I want white. Tell you what, let's do blue and gray. Something like that. All right. So now you can see kind of what we've created here. I am going to come in here and check spacing to make sure there are no overlapping stones, and it did find 2. So then we'll go ahead and copy this over. We can right click on MU to simulate stones and add dimensions and watermarks, and then we can come in here to our glitter fill and we'll change our F, and there you have that F design with our little swirly gig right on top, and it looks pretty cool. But we did spend 30 minutes creating the design, so it wasn't something that we could just snap our fingers and make happen, but we had some really useful tools here in EasyStone. That respace tool, it was a godsend for this design because we were able to get things spaced out and make it look really nice. That Create Decal Cut Line feature for creating that contour automatically for us throughout all of our selected stones, and then we can use that contour line as a trim, so our stones will sit right nicely right inside of our glitter, and you can see kind of how that looks when you just pull that apart by itself. So anyhow, I hope you found this demonstration interesting, even if you didn't understand what I was doing step by step by step. If you have an understanding of how we approach the design, that will go a long way for you to create whatever it is you need to create. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and thanks for watching.